What's up, guys, and welcome back to 3G Video and our podcast series. Today, I have a very special guest with me, the Canadian Chuck Norris and or Rich Guido. I'm very excited to have you on today, man.
Thanks, special guest. Yeah, that's
Hey,
probably I probably fit that bill.
no, you are very much a special guest to us. I mean, to have somebody that has the pedigree that you do in the drag and drive scene and just the stories that you have, I'm very excited to have you on tonight and excited to talk a little bit about some of your adventures. So
I'm excited to be here.
cool, man.
There's been a few adventures. Yep.
Yeah, so I saw that you've been traveling around doing some podcasts, being on. You have your own podcast now, correct?
Yeah, we have clutch burners. So it's actually on stickracing.com.
Okay.
Travis and Bill run that one. So yeah, I'm a co-host on there. I think
Awesome.
we got to be close to 30 podcasts or something now. So
Oh man, I didn't realize it was that many. Man, that's awesome.
yeah, it's a ton. Lots of fun.
Dude, okay, so make sure you guys go check out his podcast. Also, they are giving out some really good content and everything. So make sure you guys go over and follow them, subscribe, do whatever you guys do and like to do on there. So awesome. So everybody knows you because of the fact that you drive your car to all of the events. And I knew this, going into it a lot because I heard a lot of people talk about that. And then last year I went up to Miles of Mayhem and realized just how far away you actually live, and it made it even more impressive. So, what's some of your best stories you have from traveling and going driving your race car to the events?
Probably the craziest one is, or one of the craziest ones, probably the very first one that we did. Like in 2013, I've known that like I'm a time slip hunter, so it doesn't really have to be a heads up race. I just want to see how fast I can make my car that I drive everywhere. So I'd been reading about Drag Week and I just decided I was going, and then my brother decided to come as well. And um so, we started looking into it. We signed up in 2013. It wasn't quite the IT accomplishment to get in. So we both got in, and my dad was a passenger with my brother, and my engine builder was a passenger in my car. Now he ended up flying down, so dad rode with both of us on the way down. But I kid you not, we left here and we did not even get out of Alberta, and my brother lost the camshaft gear that drives the distributor and the oil pump before we even left Alberta. So we we were literally, you know, 5 hours from home, and we were already broke down on the side of the road. So we ended up, strangely enough, he had a camshaft with him, which was like, why do you have a camshaft with you? Because at that time we were totally junior. Like we did spare parts for, I had everything I owned in my trailer, or everything I needed in my trailer. I think I had a rack on the back, or sorry, yeah, everything in the trunk, and then I just had a rack on the back. So no, I didn't carry nowhere near the stuff I did.
Yeah.
And so on the side of the road, it was windy. We changed the camshaft on the side of the road. I had to pull a balancer off. Like we ripped this thing right apart in dusty Alberta and slapped it together and kept going. So that was the start. And then that year is the one that Tom Bailey talks about being so hot. Like it was 113 degrees when we got down there. But on the way down, I thought I would weigh my car, and I drove over the scale. And as I drive onto the scale, I hear this, and I'm like, oh, and I feel the back of the car kind of sag, and I'm
Oh
like,
no.
oh my God, did I just blow a tire? But it was actually the airbag in the back. It was so hot, the exhaust was close enough to it that it popped the airbag.
Ooh.
So we rolled dirty for the rest of the trip. Like already started uh, um, the idea of, well, you know what? If we call Summit and get it shipped to the hotel, it'll be there when we get there. So we got very quickly introduced to drag and drive, and But then it was, the whole event was nuts from the get-go. So Bob didn't really have any more problems. We get to registration day. Alex Taylor it was her first year as well. She was 16 years old, and there was all this controversy around whether or not she was allowed to run. Like some of the, I would say, higher ups at the Hot Rod magazine were like, nope, she can't run. You have to be 18. But she had a driver's license. So a whole bunch of us stood up and said, well, you kick her out, we're all leaving too. And so she ended up going in, and I I bugged my brother about this. Brandon, who wrote for Hot Rod magazine, he did an article while I was in registration line talking about the fact that I drove this car down there. I expected to run tens. And so that was kind of nerve wracking. So it's already pretty high expectations, and I haven't even made a pass yet. And so this article comes out, and some of my buddies up here are sending it to me, and so I think first day it ran somewhere mid tens after driving all the way down there. So that kind of kicked some stuff off right off the bat, and I think a lot of people at that point didn't really think that they just didn't put two and two together that I actually drove the car all the way down.
Yeah.
Even though I'm telling them, yeah, I don't have a truck and trailer, and I drove it all the way down, but I think people are thinking, well, I drove it from somewhere, but
Yeah.
not that far,
Yeah.
or straight north. But it was in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And then what was it? I think day three. So day two we met Bill Armstrong, and I'd met him on day one actually, but day two he comes up like kind of like a little lost puppy dog, and he's like, dude, I think I broke my transmission. He knew I had a spare transmission, but he's got a Ford, I got a Pontiac, and he starts telling me what's wrong, and I'm like, man, it doesn't sound like it's your transmission. It sounds like your clutch plate's welded to your flywheel or something.
Oh
So
man.
sure enough, we I climb under the car, or I put the jack under. He's under the car, and I start jacking the car up, and he looks up at me, and I don't know him hardly at all. He looks up at me and he says, man, he says, this thing has got a strong oil pan. And so now I'm like jacking slow, and I'm thinking, oh, what did I get myself into? And it's bloody hot out. Like it's over 100 degrees. My dad's looking at me like, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here and make some miles. And so I'm jacking slow, and Bill looks up at me and goes, I'm just kidding, man. And I'm like, oh yeah, you and me, we're gonna be good friends. So we find out everything's working fine, but sure enough, the clutch disc is welded itself to the flywheel. So we're in the parking lot trying to bounce this thing. I think it was in Indy, and trying to break the thing free, and we couldn't get it broke free. So we made a few calls, drove to a transmission shop that basically said, we don't have room for you, but you can use the parking lot if you. And I remember it's like 100 degrees out, and that's like, oh. So we get there, and there's a car wash right beside it. So anyways, I'll shorten the story up a bit. We parked both cars in the car wash because I've got a bunch of tools. Bill is in way worse shape than us. Like he didn't have jack stands. He's hardly got any tools at all. And so we pretty much jacked it up, pulled it apart. I think I took the flywheel into the transmission shop and used a grinder and a buffer to clean the stuff off, because we had to pry the disc off the flywheel. They went and bought some cheap Napa disc. And the other piece I was going to mention, because it was welded together and you have to drive, like Bill essentially used his starter everywhere to get anywhere. So we get out to a stop sign, he'd shut it off, check start the car with the starter, get it going, and then he would just match shift it.
Yep.
I'm following him. I'm thinking, man, we could have drove all the way to the hotel. We don't have to stop anywhere. I can't even tell there's anything wrong. So yeah, like I said, at that point it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna be good friends. So, and then day three, Um, I'm like just about the first guy down the track, and I make a pass, and it's okay. I think it might have been in the 11s or high 10s or something. And at that point, I think I was in second place. And so I went right back around and got back in staging. And then there's a guy beside me in another car, and he's almost visibly shaking, and my phone is going off the hook. I'm like, something's going on here. And turns out my brother hit both walls after me. He
Ooh.
hit the wall on the right, and then he went all the way across right in front of the guy who's at back beside me in staging, who's shaking. And so the front of his car is all smashed up, and we spent the rest of the day with Mike Finnegan, who stayed there and helped us.
Yeah.
And we went to the auto wrecker, picked up new tires and rims, like it was just a shit show. So that was our introduction to our first dragon drive. So I ended up going and winning second place in big box street race power adder. My brother got spirit of the event because he kept going. He finished the whole event. Like we got him going, and then we still had to drive home. So we got to um Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay.
And my brother, I think we had two ways. My brother messages me and he said, I'm pretty sure I just broke an axle or something. And so he pulls off the freeway in Fargo, North Dakota. And I kid you not, one of the guys who messaged us and said, if you have any problems when you're going through Fargo, give me a holler. You could have thrown a rock to this guy's house.
Oh
And so we,
man,
we
that's a
literally,
blessing, man.
yeah, we pulled the axle out. The guy came over, and my brother bought another bearing because of hitting walls.
Yeah.
And so he literally, like an hour later, we were back on the road, and we drove
Wow.
all the way home. Funny part was going through the border. The border guard says, "Did you make any modifications to your car?" And I'm like, "I didn't, but he sure did." So Bob's literally like driving up there. One whole side of his car is smashed. Oh yeah, it was like it. For the first one, it should have convinced us that's a good. You completed it. You
Yeah.
should just stop now. And but we didn't. We fell in love with it. And I'm literally on the way home. We're trying to figure out, I wonder when the next one. Like we got to
Yeah.
sign up for this again next year. And
That's awesome.
it was just a blast. I mean, we made really good friends with the Taylors.
Mhm.
I think it was 2 years later. A whole bunch of us went to the Taylors to help them get a few of their cars ready before drag week again. And oh yeah, just you just meet so many good people
All right.
doing it.
That's one of the things that comes up so often is just the community, like how good the community is and how everybody works together and is always willing to just give the shirt off of their back to, get the other person to where they need to go. And that's one thing that was so intriguing to me whenever I came in, because I came in late to the game, like I think my first one was in 21 was whenever my first drag and drive. And it even at that point, like everybody was so welcoming. They were cool for me to be there and take pictures, and I'll go up to interview everybody, and everybody's so welcoming to talk to me and do all that. And it made me feel very welcome in the community, and that was really cool. It's a little different than some of your local, races that are an everyday race or something, that just a little different atmosphere, and it's very like you said, like you kind of get hooked on it, and it's a hard week, but as soon as you get done, you want to go back and go to another one. So
Well, I think
that's
that
awesome.
the bond that you form with people when you're in the middle of a struggle,
Mhm.
um, and and the fact that all these people are signing up for the struggle,
Yeah.
I think it's call it as blue collar as you can get, right? These everyone likes to work, they like to accomplish stuff. And even like I'm in an office job now, and you can go for a couple weeks and like if somebody asked me, what did you accomplish the last couple of weeks? I'd be like, that's a great question. When you do the drag and drive and you complete it and you're done, there's light at the end of the tunnel while you're in it.
Yep.
And the option of not finishing when you drive your car there, it's not much of an option. Like
Yep.
you're gonna have to get real creative all of a sudden if your car is broke and you're thousands and thousands of miles from home. So,
Yep. So
but yeah,
talking about that, this last year at 2.0, you guys had some problems, didn't you? At 2.0, at Bandamere, I
um,
believe.
yeah, yeah, I think, well, it's a similar problem I've had before, but this was a head gasket
Okay.
issue, and it pushed the head gasket out enough that it was just enough that it would push water out, and it would slowly. So you could almost make a full tank of gas, and then you would have to start adding some water because it would
Mm,
start getting hot. So thankfully, we were really close to Bill Armstrong's place. That's where we were staying.
yeah.
So um I got in at like 1 in the morning because I wanted to do the whole drive the night
Mhm.
before. So I didn't have to do it in the morning. And I think I was up at like 3:30 in the morning, starting to
Woo.
rip and tear heads off. Um, but and from my last experience, I knew that if I was to just do one head and not do the other one, that I'd probably be in trouble. So this time I'd ripped both heads off.
Yep.
You couldn't really see a burnt head gasket, but it was absolutely, there was enough that where the combustion pressure would go into the coolant and slowly keep pushing the coolant out.
Mm.
So it was a long night and a long day, and
Oh, I'm sure.
um, but it was still good. I'm trying to think where I ended up in there. Oh, I ended up better than Bill because
Oh,
Bill ended up cracking his block in half.
yeah, that
So
was bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was still a good event. I think I got second behind Chris Hine, and yeah, it was a hoot. So
That event was
and
so
Chris,
cool. We had so many of the Canadians at that event. Like you guys were representing strong at that one. It was like all
that's
the
because
entire
Bill.
stick shift field was
That's
over.
right. Bill came up and kicked my butt, so I brought all my friends, and we solved that problem.
There you go.
And
And
this
then he didn't
year,
even finish.
no, and he didn't even finish. No, I'd say he broke trying.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to say.
There you
But
go. There you go. So
um,
did you make any changes for this season? Or are you staying about the same with the setup or
yeah, no, I made some changes over the winter. So that was the second time I had, or maybe the third time I had head gasket issues. And the Pontiacs, when you get them close to 17 pounds, if you're not dry decked and you're not O-ringed,
Hmm.
you're going to start having some
Yeah.
issues. So I, I dry decked it. So I plugged all the holes in the block, plugged
Mhm.
all the holes in the head.
Yeah.
Um, and I did something a little different than a lot of people do. I just left the mechanical water pump on the front. So I don't have an electric water pump.
Okay.
So the water now flows all the way through the block, out the back of the block, through the heads, and through the thermostat like it normally would. And so now if you lift the head a bit or you have any head gasket issues, it won't push water anymore.
That's cool.
Um, I'm still
How
trying to figure out how I'm going to know if I have a head gasket issue. I guess I could do a compression test. So,
yeah.
um, but that allowed me to turn it up on sick week.
Okay.
I wasn't worried about pushing water. In fact, now I think I can push it a little harder too. So,
Okay.
um, because Bill obviously has to push it harder now because he's
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah. That's great. So, um, how do you get is it on like the back of the block? You have like just a hose that goes into the head that routes it between the two, or?
Yeah, so this aftermarket Indian Adventures block, it already had taps on the back, and so
Oh, okay.
the block actually comes dry decked when you first buy it, and you got to drill holes. So It
Oh,
was really easy to plug the block side because they were all round and you could, I just pipe plugged them. The head,
okay.
there was some D-shaped ones, so we had to do some more creative stuff there. But yeah, it just comes right out of the back of the block. In fact, I cross over just so the lines are a little straighter.
Okay.
Um, and then off the water crossover in the front, there's actually a tap where I tapped it and I take off there to go to the heater because when you're going to
Oh,
Florida in January,
yeah, yeah.
you need some heat.
Up where you are, yeah. How much
Yeah.
snow was on the ground whenever you got home from Florida? Like,
Oh, like the snow, I took a picture the other day and it's as tall as my daughter's mini in my driveway from us shoveling and throwing onto the, so there is still a lot of snow here. It's starting to
oh
melt,
man.
but we're gonna get snow starting Wednesday again, so I don't know.
Jeez. I
Should
want
have
to see
stayed.
it. Like, I want to see that area up there during the winter, but at the same time, like, I don't want to deal with it. Like,
No.
it has to be pretty up in the over in the Rockies. It has to be
Oh yeah.
beautiful up there, but it would be a
Yeah,
pain in the butt.
I would say if you ever get a chance to go mountain sledding, like on a snowmobile, one, the snowmobiles now are absolutely amazing. Like the amount of horsepower, they'll go anywhere. But when you go up to the top of a mountain and it just looks like a great big pillow, and
Oh
it's this
man.
huge playground that you got to go out on. I used to snowmobile quite a bit, but I haven't done it since I moved to Red Deer. But it is amazing up there, and it's quiet. In fact, we were up there once we could hear this noise and it was like, what is this noise? And we went over closer to the edge and they were dropping heli skiers below us
Oh
to
man.
go ski down the mountain. That's how high we were. So
That's cool,
yeah, it's quite an adrenaline rush.
dude. You guys have it's just such a different world up there. I mean, and there isn't that many differences, but just going up for Miles of Mayhem, I noticed there was just these little things that were different, just kind of added up, and then you get out in the countryside and it's like, this is different, like this is not what I'm used to from home. And it was really cool to get to experience that. Hope I get to more, through the coming years, but man, it is definitely a pretty place up there. I can't believe
Yeah. And I mean, there's way prettier places than where you saw in Miles of Mayhem, like down through Drumheller and stuff in there.
it.
That's
Mhm.
super, very cool
Yeah,
country.
yeah,
Saskatchewan is pretty barren, like
yeah.
Medicine Hat, Saskatchewan. There's
Yep.
there's not a lot there, but man, if you go to Banff or Jasper
Yeah.
towards the mountains, like
I
I
came
grew up
through there
in,
on the way back, and
yeah.
I left
How
Edmonton
cool
and went
was that?
south down. Oh, I couldn't believe it, dude. It was it was just like I spent the night up in the mountains one of the nights, and I woke up to this just beautiful view, and I couldn't believe it. I was just like, I had to pinch myself because I'm like, I'm actually here, like I'm living this, and it was, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, I
Yeah,
have
you
to.
got to take those. You got to take those opportunities, and if there's one thing I've learned on the Dragon Drive events, like I was always pretty focused, and I'm still fairly focused on I need to get there.
Hmm.
Like the first part of the success to me is actually getting to the start of the event.
Yep.
So, people would be messaging me and I wouldn't stop. And it wasn't until I went to sick week the first time where uh Jason Schaefer, he was following along because Kyle Booth from Boosted Lifestyle was with me and stuff, and he's posting videos and we're sending updates, and so Jason Schaefer literally sends us a picture of steaks, and he's like, and if you don't know Jason, he's the one with the chicken coop
Yep.
with Angel, the puppy dog,
Yep.
sticking out the window. And so I didn't know, I'd never met him before, had no idea who he was. And so I said to Dad and Kyle, I'm like, well, what do you guys think? Should we stop there? I mean, we got time. We're ahead, far enough ahead of schedule. And so we say sure, and he sends us the address. And so, here's three Canadians in a GTO, and the address is, I don't know, like 12 Bayshore Drive in Niceville, Florida. I'm like, how can the Canadians not stop there? Like, it doesn't get any better than that. And so, I said to Jason, well, we'll stop and we'll eat, but then we probably should get going. And, he offered for us to stay there right off the bat while we get there. And the first thing when we pull up his driveway, I hear this car fire up, and I tell Dad and Kyle, I'm like, that's the organ grinder. I said, I know it's got to be the organ grinder. So sure enough, he comes around the corner, all 8 pipes firing away, and I'm like, how cool is that? And so, we stayed and ate, and Jason has decked his house out like, I don't know, the 1940s or something.
Oh wow.
His fridge is totally vintage. It's got a rotisserie in it. All of his furniture, some of it looks like it's from the Jetsons. So yeah, it was super, super cool. And Sean Fink, on the way down, we're going through Wyoming, and it's miserable down there and stuff. And he messages us and says, if you guys want to stay here, you can. Same thing. I mean, I've met Sean, but I didn't really know him that well.
Yep.
And so for him out of the blue to message us, and I broke a control arm after he had messaged us. So I sent him an email back. I'm like, dude, we're not going to get there until like midnight, 1 o'clock. He's like, don't even worry about it. Just come. So the wind is blowing. It's a snowstorm, and we pull up to his house. He literally opens up the garage door as we're pulling up. We pull right into his shop and stay the night there. And so that just reminded me, when all these people are messaging you, if you've got the time, stop and visit them. You're not inconveniencing them. They typically want to see you as bad as you want a nice place to stay. And
Yep.
I mean, Sean's place, Jason's place, they're all just awesome people and cool places to visit.
That's awesome, man. That is so cool to see. Like, I mean, even just from your earlier story about meeting Bill, and then, you guys hitting it off at the event, and then just meeting all the people on the route, and that is so much fun. What is your thought on there being so many more drag and drives, since you kind of came through that era of there only being drag week, and then kind of moving into where we have like 40 events this year? What's your take on that? Do you think it's a good thing for the sport? How do you see that changing the dynamic of those relationships and of that family that we've kind of created with the drag and drive?
I absolutely love it.
Okay.
For a few reasons. One, as you can tell, I love to drive my car.
Yeah.
And if we can convince more people to not just have race cars and to have cars that you can daily and still run 7s or 8s
Yep.
or 9s or 10s or whatever, right?
Yep.
And that was always the thing about drag week, is once it started getting popular, like, so many people wanted to do it but couldn't do it. Um, and even just for the economy, like, it doesn't matter. Like in Canada, we're almost emptying out gas stations when we go through a certain route.
Yeah.
All the hot rod shops get more money. It's just really good for the whole community, whether you're a sponsor. And so I think, I also think that it's really changed durability of parts. And obviously with more people doing it, it's just going to keep getting better and better. Like, people say to me all the time, I can't believe you can drive a 1,500 horsepower 8-second car across the country and it survives. Like, my favorite thing to do is to drive to my local racetrack, pass the cars that are in trailers,
Yep.
beat them at the racetrack, and then pass them on the way home because they left early, and pass them doing, at least the speed limit, or maybe a little better. And it is funny when I get to the track and stuff, and they're looking, and then they see me put the parachute on, and then they're looking some more. And,
What?
That ain't right. That guy just passed me on the highway doing 80, and now he's putting a parachute on. so yeah, I think it's great. And the other thing I love about it actually is everybody can have their own iteration.
Hmm.
Like, I love what Matt Frost and June are doing with a shootout on the last day.
Yep.
Like that's great. And what I really like about it is the class wins end on day 4, and you still have to drive to the next track. So
Yeah.
you can't burn your shit up, and if you break it, you put it on the trailer. It doesn't work like that on that
Yep.
one. Same as Tom, he's done that one to kind of make it like the sick week, the premiere. Track prep is perfect, the
Yep.
drives are a little shorter, and the scenery and everything in Florida is like fantastic.
Yeah.
So
It's Florida. It's nice.
yeah, it's Florida. So I think it's great. I don't think and look how many of them still sell out. Like
Yep.
there's just about hardly any that struggle getting enough people.
Yep.
So we're by no means saturated, and as as it grows, I mean, I know even for me, the amount of people that know me now that like just it still stuns me um when I go somewhere now. Like I've been coming back from sick week in 2023. I'm in Tennessee, and there was 3 people at the gas station that had watched the event. I was like, how
That's
crazy is
awesome.
that? Like, yeah,
That's
it's pretty
so
cool.
cool. That's awesome,
Yeah,
man.
so 2 thumbs up as far as I'm concerned. The
Yeah.
more the better.
So we had a small group that was out at Death Week, and we had so much fun out there at Death Week. I enjoyed it so much. What do you think about that style of it being more about the drive and the not necessarily vacation, but more of the adventure, and then have the racing kind of thrown in there? Do you like that style more than the more competitive, or what's your take on that?
I don't know that I like it more, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Um, it was a great one. I mean, making them 8th mile so you don't beat up on your car as much and have a really long drive. Like it was
Mhm.
truly more like a vacation, but we still got to race our
Yeah.
cars. Um, and I love the smaller groups. Like
Oh,
I would say that's one thing I like about more events is that like drag week used to be like 400 cars.
yeah.
And I mean, you're just fighting to try to get another pass in,
Hmm.
and you got 250 miles left to go that are going to take you way longer than you ever think they are.
Of course.
Um, so it's nice when you can make some more passes and you don't have to wait in line as much. So I really appreciate like Death Week was a perfect one, and sick 66 I think is another one that's going to be good. I
Yeah.
love that it starts and ends in different locations
Yes.
because it once again will force more people to drive. And
Yep.
um so yeah, I wouldn't like I like having a stick class. I like being able to compete with stick guys.
Hmm.
um you know Death Week wasn't that, but it didn't take anything away. I think I was still number 4, or was it number 4? No, number 5, I think. Out of that whole group with the stick. So I still had a blast. It was awesome. Like it
Yeah.
was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool to have that a little bit extra time and to be able to see the different places. Kind of that one you could either go through Death Valley or go around it, having that opportunity to see some of those different places. I mean, I really had a lot of fun on that trip. That was, and I'm hoping that 66 is similar to that in that style. I think that the starting and ending in different places, like you said, is going to be kind of a game changer. It'll force people into either driving to and from or figuring something else out. But I'm hoping that that catches on to being that we might see a couple more events that way. I don't know if it'll happen, but I think it'd be really cool to see some more because it'll give us an opportunity to see more tracks. And I find as a photographer, like if we're shooting the same track for test day, first day, and last day, it's like it's the same track. Like I don't need to get a whole bunch of pictures, but it kind of going somewhere new every day is gonna kind of keep it fresh, gonna keep it a little bit different. I think I'm gonna really enjoy something like that.
Yeah,
So
it does kind of open the doors to a lot of different opportunities
yeah,
when you start doing these. So yeah, I think that's what's great about it is you don't there's no rule book that says you have to follow this to do a dragon drive.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one this year too.
It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, I wanted to share a couple of my favorite. Obviously, the Sequoia forest was absolutely amazing. Like the trees and the drive up the mountain, and I mean the smoke was a little worrisome when we first started climbing the mountain, but once we got up there and you're parked beside those massive trees, and then I don't know what it was, 180-degree turns on the way down. Everyone with manual steering was like, looked like freaking Hercules by the time they got to the bottom. And that was one of and then the Verona racetrack. I'll tell you, like when we got there and they said the person in the right, he's got the right of way and the exit's on the left. That should have been the first clue for some of us to go, maybe we should walk this track. So I make my pass and I think I was doing like 118 miles an hour. It wasn't a very good pass. But all of a sudden I see this guy sitting beside me and I'm like, what the hell? What is that? And then I realized that's the turnoff. And so I hit my brakes and I think I bottomed out the front of the car like 3 times. And I thought I flattened my tires. And so I get to a stop beside the guy and I got power windows. So I put my window down. I'm like, are my tires okay? And he's like, well, they were smoking a bit, but they look fine. And so I turn off and I realize that obviously I don't know how short the track is. And I probably should have walked it because if you hit the brakes right after you go through the 8th mile, you're probably okay. But if you're checking out the scenery and then you got to make the turn. It's like, and Bailey said the same thing. I think he made one pass and was doing like 145 miles an hour in the same lane I was. And so the only way you can actually make the turn is you have to turn into the right lane in order to make the exit because it's a freaking hairpin turn.
Okay.
And so that's why the person on the right actually has they have to make the exit first because you have to pull into their lane in order to get out of the track. And it was like, oh man, that's a reminder that you should probably walk the track if you've never, especially if you hear something strange, you're like, oh, or at least take a drive down it slower or something. But yeah, that was a pretty awesome trip, even like the whole California coast and everything about that trip was fantastic. Like definitely no regrets.
So, did you know that Verona track is on like Native American land or something? Did you know that it's like leased out by like,
No.
yeah. So when we left the track, I had an issue with the Volvo with Benny. As I was leaving, uh, we got like a mile and a half, 2 miles down the road, and it was just spewing coolant out of it. And it was bad. So I like pulled over to the side of the road. There was like a little pull off thing. I pull over and stop. I'm working on the car and I'm trying to get it to where like patched up enough that I can get it to somewhere to get a new lower radiator hose on it. And I'm like zip tying stuff, trying to get the alternator out of the way, like moving all this garbage. It was hot and everything. And this cop pulls up behind us and like with his lights on, pulls in behind us. I'm like, oh, okay, he's just stopped to make sure we're okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
And um, we're sitting there. I'm under the car, and John's helping me from above. And the cop comes around. He's like, "You guys know why I stopped, right?" And we're like, "Cause we're broke down on the side of the road." Like, you're, what do you mean? He's like, "No, you guys can't be stopping here. Like, this is like Native American, or like I think it was Native American land, and like you guys can't be stopping here." I'm like, my car is broke. Like, what do you want me to
My
do?
options are limited.
Like, and he's like, well, you can't be out here. Like locals are going to be coming after, like, going to get mad at me because like you're not supposed to be like sitting here. I got to make sure you're not doing nefarious things off the side of the road. I'm like on the road, like, what? And but he waited there until we got everything patched up, and then I left. It was just like, wow.
I'm
That
glad
was a new experience.
I'm glad that was you because I made it to the gas station at the bottom of that windy hill and I knew something was wrong because the car you could take your hands off it before I went to the track. After I went to the track, it was like that thing wouldn't stay on the road. And I'm like,
Oh man.
what in the heck is going on here? So it literally, when I hit those bumps, it I can't remember if it towed it way in or it towed it way out. I think it
Ooh,
towed it way out. And so yeah, I had to loosen it off and straighten the thing back out. And so I'm glad I didn't do it on the side of the road. I made
yeah.
it to the gas station
Yeah, that was
anyways, but yeah, those are interesting stories. We've ended up, I'm trying to think where we were, if we were in like Chicago or something, and we had to fill up a gas.
ooh.
And so we go to this little gas station off the main freeway, and right away it's like, not sure we're in the best part of town. And then PJ was with us at the time. He was riding with Matt Blasco, and he's in the little corner store, and the guy in the corner store is going like, what are you whiteys doing here? Like, and PJ says they're talking about being strapped, like carrying weapons on them. And PJ comes out and he's white as a ghost, and he's like, we gotta go. And it's like, wow, not filled up yet. He's like, no, we gotta go. He's like, you don't understand. And so yeah, we've ended up in a few of those situations where
Yeah.
like, yeah, I remember the New York Dave Trezzi says to me once, we were somewhere at a stop or, and he's like, you guys good? And I'm like, yeah, we're good. We're just gonna hang out a bit. And he's like, do you not feel it? I'm like, feel what? And he's like, this is not a good part of town. He's like, you stupid Canadians, like you guys get out of here. Like, this is not a good place to be. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like,
Was this in New York? Like,
no, that was actually on one of the, I think that was on was it on a sick week event? But yeah, I was clueless. Wherever we were, Dave was like, this is not a good place to be, fellas. Go. Like, so yeah, we ended up in a few of those situations a few
yeah.
few times. Probably one of my other favorite stories was, so there's Matt Blasco in the Dirty Dart, Pat Miker in his silver Chevelle with the, well,
Yep.
from up here.
Yep.
I'm in my car. I'm trying to think if that was it or if there was one more. It might have been, there might have been another guy in a Land Cruiser, Derek Mueller,
Yep.
that you haven't met yet. But anyways, Pat had rattled the tires so hard that he wrecked the battery. So we were fighting to keep his car going, and we end up at this gas station. And first of all, we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do. And well, these two ladies come up, and they are like, they just about fall out of their truck, and so they're go in to grab something, and then they're over chatting with us, and they're having a good time, like, and we're laughing our asses off listening to them. And then finally they say, well, we better get home and get to bed because we got to go to court for that DUI tomorrow. I'm thinking, oh, this is good. And then Matt says, he says, let's go to me. And I'm like, where are we going? He's like, we're hopping in your car and we're gonna go find a battery for Pat's car. It's like midnight in
Oh,
this little town. It's like, I don't know if it's Roosevelt or I can't remember, but it had a name that made me also worried. And so Matt and I hop in my car and we start driving around. And the first car that we see, we follow it and we park beside it when they park. And it's these two old biddies, and they're like, Matt rolls down the window and they roll down their window, and all they want to say is, no, we don't have anything. And Matt's trying to explain, we're looking for a battery. And they're like, their windows open this much. And I'm like, oh, we're going to die tonight, one way or another. This is not going to end well. So Matt's like, keep going. And so we're driving. And every time I think we should go left, he's like, turn right. And we drive by this house, and Matt's like, pull over. He's like, I'm going to buy a battery out of that. Like it was like a Ford Escort, or it was a little SUV, actually, a Ford
Like the Escape
Uh,
or
no, you know what? It was a Jeep. It was one of
oh, okay.
those smaller Jeeps. And and I'm thinking, I didn't see any lights on in the house. I didn't see, and this vehicle's parked out in front of this house, but it looks like it's apart, like it's not running. And I said to Matt, I'm like, okay, I said, but if I hear shooting, I'm leaving. And so he goes and knocks on the front door, and this guy comes to the door, and Matt's like, tells him the story, you know, is there any chance I could look at the battery that's in that Jeep out there? And he's like, well, the guy who owns the Jeep just went out the back door. And so now Matt's starting to think, oh, that's not good. And anyways, this guy comes out and starts talking to Matt, and we go over there, and you know, Matt's telling him the story and everything, and we pop the hood, and I kid you not, this battery looks like it's the perfect size for Pat's car.
What?
And, yeah, and so Matt starts talking to the guy, and you know, the guy pretty much should know we're desperate. And so he's got his hands in his pockets, and Matt's like, what do you want for it? Like, we don't know if it's charged, if it's working or anything, but Matt's thinking, well, it's got to be better than what we got. So the guy's like, how's $20 sound? I couldn't get
What?
20 bucks. Yeah, I couldn't get $20 out fast enough. And so I grabbed some tools, and he's like, no, I'll take it out. And we're like, all right, yeah, no problem. And so sure enough, we buy this battery off this guy for $20. We run it back to Pat. We drop it in. It fits perfect. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Pat is still running that battery in his car.
Dude,
And
that's
so we
insane.
put it in there. We didn't have to charge it up or nothing. It freaking fired his car right up, and he was good. That we had no more battery issues after that. So
That's awesome.
it was, yeah. It's just so much craziness happens, right? When you're broke
Yep.
down somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and you got to get creative about
Yep.
what you're going to do. I'm
I
not sure
love
I would have suggested that, but
I love seeing that type of stuff, man. I'm just like how people or they find ways around something like uh, from holding up valves with zip ties to just things that you wouldn't do on a tractor that you had, but you're doing it on these race cars. It's just like, what is going on? But it works. That's the crazy part. I mean, people get ingenuitive and they make these things work that shouldn't. Like there shouldn't be a prayer
yeah.
for that to work, and it does. It's just like,
Well,
okay.
so Derek Mueller in this Land Cruiser. So he's got this Land Cruiser, and he'll be out this year, whether he's at Miles of Mayhem, but you'll see it out, and
Okay.
it's a crazy looking rig, and it'll be super fast and it's light.
Ooh,
Anyways, we were on drag week, and this was his first event, and he started knocking the balls off the push rods, or he knocked
ooh,
a ball off a push rod. So Dylan Merkel was with him, or with us at the time. I think he was riding with Matt. And so we're trying to figure out what are we going to do where he
mhm.
doesn't have any more push rods, and it's actually the push rod is a cup style. So Dylan's looking at it, and he's a pretty smart dude. He's like, I bet you we could put a 1/4 inch 5/16 socket on the end of that and turn that into to the to the end of the push rod. So that is exactly what we did. We pounded it on,
Oh,
and
you just hammered it on. You didn't even.
just hammered it right on the end of the push rod. And I think we did like 200 or 300 miles like that
Oh
without
man,
issue after that.
that's
It was
awesome.
crazy. But same thing. It was like one guy just, you know, looking at it,
Yep.
brain's working, and all of a sudden we're hammering on a socket to turn it into the end of the push rod. And yeah, it's crazy stuff.
We were at 2.0 and 22. I was co-piloting with Brandon Tapp in the C2X, that silver Corvette,
Yep.
and we needed to shim a rocker. Well, we thought we needed to shim a rocker because we were having an issue. It turned out it was a spark plug the whole time, but we ended up shimming the rocker with a pop can, like
Oh
just
yeah,
over just like cut it out and shimmed it. And it worked. I mean, probably not
exactly.
the way that they ideally tell you to do it, but hey, it lasted.
Yeah, that's also why I know that some of those construction signs on the side of the road that have tires and wheels on them.
Hmm,
So those are pretty close to what you're running on your trailer. So
really? Huh,
they may or may not have lost a few over the years
yeah.
from different events, but I'm sure we buried some money close by that
Yeah, yeah.
they could use. Yep.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, the creativity is awesome. Like that's what makes it pretty cool. Like somebody's just got to come up with a good idea, and the next thing you know, you're back up and running again.
So, with you traveling to every event and all that, have you ever gotten a time that you were like, "Oh, we're not going to be able to get this fixed. Like, I'm stuck." Have you ever got in that time before?
Um, I think it was Rocky Mountain Race Week 2.0 2022, I think actually.
Okay.
So I drove down and trying to think, or was it 2020? Anyways, it was a Rocky Mountain Race Week. It was a 2.0, and I go and I make a pass, um, and I run out of oil on the top of the track. I don't really
Oh,
realize it at the time. Actually, when I let off, there's like no oil pressure, and I pull over and I'm almost sulking at the top of the track, and and I fire the thing back up, and it's got oil pressure back and everything, and I'm like, all right. So I have a clear view filter, so I get back to the pits, I blow the filter out and looks good. There's no bearing material in it. There's no nothing. I'm thinking, all right, well, I add a liter of oil and then I go and make another pass. Next pass, oil pressure is good for the whole pass. But when I come back, I think, well, I'm going to blow the filter out again just to make sure everything's okay. And
yeah.
I blow the filter out again, and this time it's got like shards of aluminum in it, like probably only two or three, but they're like half an inch long and they're kind of roundish. I'm like, what in the like? I know that there's stuff ends up in the filter, but I have never seen this. So I take the filter apart. I get a magnet. Yeah, it's aluminum. And so we take it back to the hotel and start ripping it apart. Everything that's aluminum on there, we're digging in. So the cam sink at the back where the distributor goes, it's aluminum. Pull that out, it's fine. Pull a balancer off so I can get the timing cover off, thinking that maybe a chain is carving the aluminum there. Nope, it's fine. And can't really think of anywhere else to dig other than, and of course, we pulled the valve covers off too, and there was nothing going on there. And so I actually decided to leave it there. So Aaron and Trevor Brandon, Trevor was in the GTR, and Aaron was driving their Ford Raptor. Raptor? I don't think it's called the Raptor. What's the other one? There's the Dodge. It's the
Oh,
Dodge,
the TRX.
the TRX. Yes, thank you. And so I ended up driving the TRX for the whole event. My dad hopped in the back with Aaron in the passenger seat. So I think she was happy to have us as, chauffeurs. And so when we get back on the last day, jack it up, and I cut the cross member in my car, I don't know, a couple of years ago, so that if I ever had to pull a pan, I could.
Okay.
And when I dropped the oil pan, there's a piston pin clip in the bottom of the oil pan. And so I look up and I can see that the piston is moved out and is riding on the cylinder wall. And so the aluminum was coming through the other side of the boss, where on the other side of the connecting rod, it was like chewing up the piston. Like if I would have made one more pass, I think it would have
Oh,
ripped the pin right out of the piston and would have had all kinds of fun go on.
yeah.
So two things: the Clearview filter, I would say, saved my ass, and
Yeah.
for once, I made the right decision. Now, Aaron, or Trevor was leaving his car down there. So there was an empty truck and trailer going back, like right by my house. First
Oh
time
wow.
ever that I've been on an event where there's a truck and trailer that's going by my house empty on the way home.
Wow.
Trevor was going to TX2K, and so his co-pilot Emilio Armadillo. Anyways, he's the one who drove it back to Texas. So I threw my car on their trailer and trailered it home. So
Oh.
it was just one of those situations where. So what would I have done if he wasn't there? Honestly, I probably would have pushed the pin back in, put the clip back in, and probably drove it home. Like I don't think I could have hurt it anymore. Um, but that was knock on wood. That was the only time that I have not made it home. That was
Wow.
my first failure, and I think it was my 13th event actually.
Gee, man.
So
What are you at total now? Do you have that count?
I'll have to look. So we can keep talking, but I can find you because there is quite a few.
Yeah, yeah. Feel like everywhere I come pulling in, I'm like, well, there's Guido.
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate. I've worked with the same company for this is my 26 years. So I got quite a bit of vacation and yeah, they treat me pretty good. So
That's awesome.
I don't have any complaints, and it does allow me, especially being that I'm not self-employed. I've got the golden handcuffs on. You know, when I leave, I can leave, and I have good people to cover for me, and yeah, it's pretty cool that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. So,
Okay, here we go. So I'll just list them off for you. So I did drag
okay.
week 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18.
Uh-huh.
And then Rocky Mountain Race Week was the first year I did two events was in 2017. And then I did it in 2018 as well. So 17 and 18, I did both events.
Hmm.
And then um, Rocky Mountain Race Week I did in 19. I missed 2000 or 2020 because
Yeah.
of COVID. And then 21, 22, and 23. Miles of Mayhem in 21 and 23. I broke my car in 22, so I rode with Matt that year. So I went, I just didn't
Yeah.
take my own car. And then sick week 3 years in a row. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14,
A
15,
lot.
16, 17, 17 events.
Geez. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. So what are
Oh,
your
I
plans
missed.
for this year?
So obviously sick week, and then I had a plant turnaround last year, so I missed a bunch in the summer, and it went so well that they moved me to the next plant that's having a turnaround. So all of June and July, I'm pretty busy, except for the end of July, I'll go back to Miles of Mayhem again.
Okay.
And then I didn't sign up for Rocky Mountain Race Week, but I'm still contemplating whether or not I'll go to 2.0 or not. But I did sign up for SICK 66.
Okay.
So probably those three events anyways. But I'm also through all this craziness, I met um, Bill Hotskins from Old Man's Garage and Billy the Kid
Yeah.
and those guys and Tony and Tess. And then more recently at PRI met Tom Gunner, who's Jimmy Dale. And so he puts on this race called Small Tire Gangster. So at
Okay.
Sick Week, he was the guy who was burned really bad. He was the
Oh,
one that on one day there, yeah.
yep.
So we tried to help him because he bought another truck because he was worried that he heard a head gasket on the car and his wife was going to drive it, and but he burned like 40% of his body from a rad cap. So they did the wise thing and didn't actually do the event,
Yeah.
but got to know him pretty well, and so April 12th and 13th, he's got an event called the Small Tire Gangster. And if you want to look up the Yellow Belly track in Texas, it's
Okay.
this crazy ass outlaw track.
Oh man.
And so I'm driving down there in April, and we're gonna try some no prep racing and see how it goes.
That'll be different. Yeah, that'll be kind of fun.
Yeah, it's I think it's like the 12th and the 13th. There's test and tune on the Thursday before that. So between you and me and whoever's listening, I'm probably gonna test on the first day and then try to make a mature decision whether or not I want to race the next 2 days.
Yeah.
And then there's a track rental on the Sunday um that's supposed to have really good prep. So if I can go sub certification and make Bill more nervous, then I'm going to try to do that.
There you go. That's great. I like that friendship rivalry type thing that's going on there. You guys keep pushing
Oh
each other.
yeah, yeah. Funny story. Like when I went 861 on day one, and Bill's like, "Yay, good job." He's in Hawaii, hey, watching from afar. And then on day three, when I went 851, he called his engine guy, and he's like, "Is it too late to O-ring that block yet?" And so he's literally on holidays with his fiance, and he's calling back to the engine place because I'm doing good. He's like, so yeah, that's perfect. That
That's
was my
funny.
goal when I went there. I said, all I want to do is go faster than your 870 and do it in January where you got all spring to think about it.
That's awesome, man. Well, you
That worked.
definitely accomplished that goal. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
He was
awesome.
ahead of me like for a long time. Well, actually, since last year at sick week, I went 875. He's been 870 for a few years. So I was like, oh,
Yeah, right there.
yeah, we solved that problem for now, though.
There you go. There you go. What do you think you're gonna be able to squeeze out of it?
Um, it depends on what I've been next, but the car's got like that was only 17 pounds of boost, and I'm not afraid to turn it up to 20 or 22 or something, which would be another 5 pounds. And every pound of boost on that motor, because it's so big, makes about 50 horsepower more.
Oh man.
So another 3 pounds is another 150 horse. So I think we'll start there far from home. I don't know if I
There
want to
you
go
go.
much over 20 pounds
Yeah.
far from home, but so it should go 820s, 830s.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that's moving.
got it. Yeah, I just got to get it all together. But the car is only certed for 850, so you pretty much have to go to a track rental or somewhere to kind of push it beyond its limits just a little bit.
Are you planning on making it certed for faster, or are you just gonna leave it at that 850?
I really don't think I'm going to. I mean, I just drive it so much, and even having a passenger in there with a 750 cage, I think there's some risk there too. And so I don't know. I mean, it's so freaking heavy too. It's not the right car to try. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not the right car to go 850s in, let alone anything faster than that. But so I don't know. I currently the plan is not to.
Okay.
If I could just make it easier on parts, like I twisted a yoke was the only thing I really um only heard on sick week, and that was turned up. Um, but we'll see. We'll see if we can't fix some of that stuff.
There
Might
you
have
go.
to be a carbon fiber drive shaft in my future or something to take up a
Oh,
little bit of the shock or
yeah.
but
It's impressive. Like, I mean, to think that you have a stick shift car that's running 850s, and like the very first drag week, like somebody was running in the eights and they were freaking out about it. Like, like how far things have come, and like you just drive it around and it's an 850 car. Like, okay, like, that's insane. I mean,
it
yeah,
is funny at the track. Like sick week is especially funny because people will come over and ask me if they're like, are you the guy who drove it all the way here? And so then I tell them yes and everything. And then, I don't think they understand how fast the car is. And then they
yeah,
go and watch it. And then they come back again and they're like, you drove this thing all the way from Canada?
Yeah.
I should have had a shirt on that said, yes, I'm that guy. I drove it all the way from Canada. I'm not that smart, but yeah, I mean, between the 6 speed, the overdrive, fuel injection, and then through a lot of learning, um, um, yeah, it's more and more getting more reliable all the time. So
So do you find that like from when you started doing drag and drive events, did you have more breakages then or now? Because it wasn't running as fast back then, but you obviously know a lot more about it now and how to keep it, going.
oh yeah, no, this is absolutely like I think the first drag week I was breaking transmissions. Like I had a spare transmission with me, even on the very first one I went on, because it was a TKO 600. Um, and then yeah, I mean everything from having a wrong connector on a crank trigger to I broke upper control arms, I think 3 times
Oh,
before I finally
gee.
figured out that maybe I need some stronger ones. Um, sick week, I ripped the upper ear off the diff, and so some of it is from wear and tear from just doing so much, but
Yeah.
no, I would say between valve train, um, and some suspension components and stuff, it used to break a lot more, but you slowly get beefier and beefier. And I should take my own advice and overdo, don't redo when you're putting parts in, but sometimes that's not always on the wallet. Like a carbon fiber dry shaft would probably be the right thing to do, just because it might take up some of the hit from the stick.
Hmm.
But it's one of those things. Like I've just got I don't even have an aluminum one on there. I have a chromoly, and it's worked for me. So
Yeah.
typically when something works for me, there's no point in fixing what ain't broke, because
Yeah.
just about every time you do, it causes another problem somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest thing when you get a setup that and you're like it's working, you're not having problems with it. It's very hard to take that apart and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna change it," because yeah, if it does break the next time you're gonna be kicking yourself. But
Uh, another crazy story for you. So Matt Blaska was riding with me. Oh, and I'm thinking it's like 2021 sick week, and because I'm pretty sure it was after COVID. And so we do the whole event. It's all over, and it starts and ends in Oklahoma. And I make a pass, and actually I race Mike Finnegan. I raced Mike Finnegan. It was the very last pass, and we went side by side. I think I went 90. We went 902s, like side by side, and
oh,
both of us were
nice.
trying to make an 8 second pass. And so we come back, and Justin Shear, Big Chief, is there from Street Outlaws, Pontiac guy too. And
Mhm.
so he stood there, and I bet you talked to us for like 50 minutes
Hmm.
about Pontiacs, and it was pretty cool to just hang out and stuff. And then take the car back to the pits. Matt starts changing the car over. I'm up handing in my time slip or whatever, and we change the car over. The event's all over. I think I got second that year, second or third. I might have got third behind Chad Figley and Garrett Cletus.
Okay.
Um, I'm pretty sure that was the year. And so we're leaving the track, and and it's like, why does it smell like burning oil? And I'm like, I changed the oil when I got to the track for the drive home, and but I had made passes and everything since, and there was no burning oil smell there.
Yeah.
So then we're driving out of the track, and pretty soon it's like starting to smoke out from underneath the hood. And I'm like, oh shit. So we pull in this gas station just outside of the track, and literally two guys follow us all the way to this gas station, and they are like a NASCAR pit team. They got fire extinguishers, and so I popped the hood, and I'm like, "Oh, don't hit nothing yet." Trying to figure out what's going on, and
Yeah.
one of the things that Big Chief and I were chatting about was balancer issues, like breaking balancers. And so I'm looking down, and I'm looking at the timing cover, it looks kind of messed up or something. So we jack it up and I'm looking underneath and the timing cover is like broken. And I'm thinking, oh God, I broke the front of the crank off or something. Like, how in the world would I break the timing cover off? And Matt, my passenger says, he says, well, when it fell off the jack, and I just rolled up from underneath the car and I looked at him and I'm like, pardon? He's like, yeah, I was jacking it up in the gravel and the car slid. He said, but I had jack stands underneath it, but I needed to give it like another push. And when he gave it the extra push, it fell onto the jack stands, but it also fell onto the jack. And he didn't notice, and it bust the timing cover. And so it literally broke the corner of the timing cover. So the oil is like and it attaches
Oh,
right to the oil pan. So I'm like, ugh. So these guys who stopped, I wish I could remember their names. It was the first time they had done a drag and drive event, and they knew who I was, thankfully. And so they had big tubes of like JB Quick. And so
okay.
we mixed up and I beat the thing back together because the oil pan was holding the bottom of the timing cover, and it had bent the oil pan too, but we managed to bend it as close as we could. And then we just started like literally pumping all this stuff in there to try to get it to stop leaking. And when we were talking to Justin, he said he gave me his personal number, and he says, if you guys need anything, you just let me know. And so we get to the hotel at like 4 in the morning, and the first thing they say is, no, you're too late, we gave your room away. And we're
Oh
like,
man.
oh no. And Blasco's losing his shit with the attendant at the front. And I look out the window, I can literally see another hotel. So I walk over there and I tell a lady what's going on. And I said, we just need a place to stay for um till whenever checkout is. And she's like, you mean you only want to be here till like 10? And I'm like, if we could take a room till 10 o'clock, it's perfect. So she was fantastic. She charged us like half
Oh,
the
thanks.
the rent. And we woke up at 10 and I messaged Justin and I'm like, man, I really hate to say this, but is there any chance you have a timing cover? And he's like, I don't think I do, because he runs a timing belt. He doesn't run a
Yeah.
timing, so he doesn't need a timing cover. And then literally in the same text, he's like, oh, you know what? He's like, I got a Pontiac engine in one of my sea cans down there. He's like, let me run down and check and I'll get back to you. So I'm like, perfect. So
Yeah.
we go for breakfast. He messages me back. He's like, yeah. He's like, I've got some stuff I got to do, but I'll get my guy to meet you down there. And he's like, take whatever you need off that engine in the back. And so we go down there, sure enough, open up the sea can, and here's this, I think it was a Pontiac 400. Timing cover is perfect.
Yeah.
So we rip it all apart, take the timing cover off, literally spend the day at Midwest Streetcars, putting my car back together. Made good friends with the fella who was helping him at the time. And another one of those situations where, like, how cool is that? Like, it was, I sent him a brand new timing cover afterwards and a draggy, actually,
There you go.
just to, just to
Yeah.
thank him
Yeah.
for doing that, because we were in a Pontiac timing covers are, they're not just lying around everywhere.
No,
So
no.
we might have been there a day or two waiting for one if we could have found one to have shipped there. But
Yeah, I definitely understand that with trying to drive Volvo power around the country. There are parts you that just aren't laying around places. Yeah.
oh, exactly.
Yeah. So I've been I'm changing some of that in Benny this year for this season, which probably by the time this comes out, the audience that follow my channel and stuff have probably seen what's going on with that. But it'll hopefully be a little easier to source some parts whenever we're out and about. Not as easy as it would if I put an LS in it, but it would I think
Easier,
it'll still be
anyways.
easier. Huh?
Easier, anyways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's at least a domestic engine. So
Yeah. And what's
that helps.
what's your next event? What's the next event you're going to?
Next one from when this is being filmed, the next one that I'm going to is Carolina Drag Cruise. Um,
Oh, nice.
So I'll be down in Carolinas, and then I'll be going to the circuit, and then I feel like there's another one in there, Builders Brawl Bash or something. There's a couple. I got a lot. I think I'm going to 16 this year. I think something like that,
Oh,
15 or
nice.
16. So yeah, it's a pretty busy schedule, but I'm excited. I'm looking forward to
Oh,
it.
no, that's super cool. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to continue to grow the channel and
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. Gonna do that and trying to get as many pictures as possible, trying to just promote the brand and get out there and enjoy myself. So
yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
It's so good to see like you and Michael and so many people are helping us, you know, share the sport with so many
Oh,
people. It's fantastic. Love the videos and
I appreciate
I
it.
was I was just going through 1320's Texas 2K video, just
Yep.
checking that out. See how my buddy Kyle from Boosted Lifestyle and those guys made out and watch the stick shift racing and
Yep.
yeah, we couldn't do it without all of you, the media guys, doing a great job and every one of you catches it, does it a little bit different, just like
Yep.
drag and drive. Like you've got your own little spin on it, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. We are happy to be out there. That's for sure. It's definitely one of those things that never, whenever I was growing up, I never thought that this would be in my future, and Lord's really blessed me to be able to be in this situation, and it's been a lot of fun. So I look forward to it, and I like to see what God's got in store for the next couple years, or even beyond that. But I'm trying to
Yeah,
focus on a year at a time, trying to.
yeah. Are you coming to Miles of Mayhem, or you're not sure yet?
I'm hoping. I have it on my schedule. It just kind of depends on how many clients I can get up there to if it can cover the event to make it possible.
Yeah,
I got to be smart this year with the events that I go to, and can't take big losses as I
yeah,
have in a couple. I've taken some losses in some of the events, so it's trying to be smart in the business side. Even though I want to go to everything, like absolutely everything, but I
yeah,
gotta be like,
yeah,
I gotta take a step back and be like, okay, I gotta make some smart decisions so we can build the business to where we can do a little bit more of those. But yeah, so I'm hoping we can get enough for that. Um, I might end up having to fly up and fly back just for timing with a couple other events, but I'm hoping if we can get it figured out, I can be there. So
yeah,
I loved it last year. It was one of my favorite events. Getting to see where you guys are from was huge, and then uh, getting to see the route and the tracks and everything up there was really fun. So
yeah. And the other thing about having less people is you get to know everybody a little better too, right?
yep,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, Miles Mayhem was cool.
Taylor Hedrick's going to come up and kick our butts in stick class this year, so
Okay,
it's good. It's gonna be an interesting class because Taylor, like he's got a 750 cert in his car, which none of the other stick guys up here do. So,
yeah,
but I think he's been like 739 or sorry, 539 in the eighth, which those of us with 850 cars, we can run 535. So,
yeah,
and the track prep up here is not what it is down there. So I'm pumped. I'm just pumped that he's coming up. I think that's
that'll
just
be
so
fun.
cool. And I think he's driving. He's not trailering.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, yeah. So yeah, it's going to be super cool.
Yeah, I love watching the stick shift class. I love watching you guys have so much fun, and I think out of all the classes, I really feel like the stick shift guys are the closest. Like you guys always are, hanging out with each other, helping each other out. You all know the struggle of driving a stick car compared to all these automatic cars that it's not the same ballpark. There's some differences there.
Yeah,
But
and the other reason we all hang out is because we can drive together. Because with the overdrives,
yeah.
is the what's your transmission temperature?
Oh, okay.
It don't matter. Yeah,
That's awesome. That is so cool. Well, thank you again for being on, man. I really, really appreciate it. It's always cool to get to sit down with you guys and talk and get to uh get to know you a little bit better, get to hear some of the stories. I love hearing them because, it's the time that I wasn't around yet by that time for in the Dragon Drive scene, and it's like it's cool to get to hear those stories and then just see where we're going in the future, man. I'm excited to see all these events popping up and where the sport's gonna lead. I think it's gonna become a little bigger of a deal than even already is. I think it's just gonna keep growing, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So
Awesome. Well, I think, like I said, fellows like yourself, sharing the sport with so many people, like whether it's bracket racers, super stock racers. I mean, I think they see what we're doing and they're like,
yeah,
yeah, I have friends. Darcy Clark is one of them who, he's been on one of the Miles of Mayhem
okay,
and absolutely loved it. Like
yeah,
loved the people. Like he went by himself, and at that point in his life, that's what he needed. He needed to
mhm,
just go for a drive and
yeah.
race. And his hometown is Saskatchewan. I think he made like 13 or 14 passes in front of a bunch of his buddies with like a super stock car.
Yeah,
Like just insane. But I think that's what's cool about it is so many car people
yeah,
are recognizing to get out. This isn't artwork that you hang on the wall. And yeah, there's some very rare cars that should be in a museum, but the rest of them got wheels, man. Get
yeah.
out there and drive them.
Exactly. No, I love that sentiment. I love being able to drive stuff like that's I've kind of made a thing in my head that any car that I own, I want it to be street legal. That way, like I can drive it. Like it might be
Yeah,
a full blown race car, but I want it to be street legal because I want to drive my stuff. Like I don't see the point in just driving it for, you know, 5 miles a year because you're only driving it down the drag strip. Like, gotta get out and drive it. Like,
exactly. Well, I mean, I told you about snowmobiling, and part of the reason I sold my snowmobile is because for me, living here compared to up in Fort McMurray, I mean, I have to drive probably 3 or 4 hours to get to the mountains to be able to ride it.
oh yeah.
And so it just closes the window of how much you can use it. So for me, having a streetcar and trying to make it go as fast as I can, my summers are short here
Yeah.
and I drive it to work. I drive it like all summer long. And
I
so,
love it.
uh, like it is literally my commuter car in the summer. If I have a choice, if the weather's good, I'll take it before I take anything else. So
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. I love that. I love that thought process. I love that way of looking at it. Like it's great. I love it. So, well, I look forward to seeing you out on the road, getting to some of these events throughout the next year, and I'll see you soon. So,
I
thank you
appreciate
again
you,
for being
Jesse.
here. Absolutely.
Thank,
Um, Yep, and
thanks
to
for having me
everybody,
on.
oh, absolutely, man. I'm honored that you were able to come on, and I appreciate it so much. It means a lot to me. So,
Awesome.
and for everyone that's on here, thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed getting to hear a little bit about these stories. I mean, it's crazy to see what's been going on, what's going to go into the future here in the stick shift class, and hopefully we can get some more people to drive their stuff to the events. Hopefully that
Yeah,
becomes
baby.
even more of a thing. Hopefully as we get going. But thank you guys for being here. As always, have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.